Cool.
And you're live.
Hello, how's it going? Thanks very much for coming and listening to me read and ramble for a little while. Um, I just see in the comments here as well. Thanks for coming, Rachel, Anita, Jen, Callum. And yes, I do find often wonder about why I choose to live in places where they constantly rains. It's been crazy today, actually. The thing about Galway is, and this is completely nothing to do with my books or anything like that, is that you have all four seasons in one day, and we had those today. It was fun. And it's especially fun when you've got a 4-year-old who wants to go out and do things, and you're like, well, let's get ready to go and do something. And then it's literally hailstone bouncing back up off the floor when it was glorious sunshine seconds before that. Anyway, I digress. Thank you for coming and hearing me ramble. Welcome to QuaranCon 2022. QuaranCon is great. I love this convention, and thank you to Virginia and Pam for organising this every single year, and everyone in the background. Claire, who is my tech person today, thanks very much. And yeah, and there's loads of great things to check out at QuaranCon. There's so many great panels. You can find them on the schedule on the website. And also, and I'll mention this again before I finish, there is an amazing book sale that is currently on, which you can find. The comment might go into the comments. If not, it's on the website. And there's lots of free or 99 cent or p or whatever your currency is books currently on offer. So do check those out. And both of my books are in there as well. So if you would check those out, that would be great. So today I am going to read, well, I was going to read from this book here, which is behind me, which is In Solitude's Shadow, which is the first book of the Empire of Ruin series. But my wonderful publisher, Michelle River of Erie River Publishing, told me to, well, suggested that I read the prologue of Path of War, which is the sequel, which is out in June. And I listened to my publisher, so I'm reading this. Right, this is unedited. It's not gone through the full process yet. But when Michelle was reading it, she was sending messages saying that she was quite happy with it. So that's a good sign. So yeah, I'm going to read that. So also, Path of War, it is on pre-order at the minute, and we've just dropped the price of it to go alongside the price, the sale for In Solitude's Shadow. So it's only 99 cents at the moment as well. So if you like what you hear, or if you liked In Solitude's Shadow, please check this out. But this is, without any further preamble or ramble, because I'm already rambling, I'm quite nervous. This is Path of War, Empire of Ruin, Book 2, the prologue, the first steps. And then afterwards, if we've time, if you've got any questions or anything like that, we can do those as well. We have until 11 o'clock GMT, which is 25 minutes. So, prologue, the first steps. Rumours say Cade Bessem got away. Others that he fell to his death. Next sees himself throwing him from a Draken window of all the ways to die. Regardless, they found him, and they'll come for us next. Mark my words. Faye Gerin twitched one of the purple curtains aside and glanced out of the window. After fleeing Spring Haven when the Emperor's people came for her, the Spark had fled to Tenet City, the place of her birth and a culture well known for protecting their own against outsiders, even if they were now a part of Halpelt and had been for the last few centuries. Some traits died hard. Still, Faye didn't feel safe. The Emperor's hands, inquisitors, assassins, spies, and rats knew what else, searched everywhere, and more often than not, found their quarry. A mass of bodies squeezed by each other on the streets below. Faye had wanted to hide in the countryside, maybe even in the foothills near Protector's Wall, but her companions, Dedrico Fern and Sarah Fairglass, Sparkers both, had argued to stay in the city and place their trust in the Empire's refusal to act with so many people surrounding them. Faye glanced at them. Dedrico had been the one to speak, to tell her of Cade's fate. Supposed fate, anyway. The Sparker looked to have aged a decade during their race from Springhaven. when his spies had tipped them off about the hand, with their sparkers in tow coming for them. Both the sparkers and the Golden Sparrow's top floor room appeared haggard, haunted, and lost. Ex-sparkers now, I suppose. There's no going back. We're enemies of Houtwell. What about Bertrand? Faye asked, glancing out to the street again. A cloud passed across the sun, casting thick shadows across the passers-by who went about their business, unaware of the treachery planned by their emperor. She frowned. It wasn't a plan anymore. Solitude would lie in ruins. All the sparkers there dead, including her mentor, Salazar du Rhagar, the father of the High Sparker himself, and her closest companion, Bowles. Well, former closest companion. He'd firmly thrown his lot in with Emperor Locke, as of most of Springhaven's aristocracy, her own family included. How has it come to this? Dead, Sarah answered this time, scowling down at her fingertips. She'd gone into town that morning to receive word from her little birds, but not before giving that drocking bastard Nexes every one of our names. For what it's worth, my people saw Cade boarding a ship north, bleeding and broken, but alive. Doesn't matter, Dedrico muttered, shaking his head. He's as good as dead now if he went north. Agents of the Empire would have his name on their blades the moment he escaped Nexes' clutches, and if they didn't do him in, there's too many ways to perish in Houtbelt these days. We won't hear from him again. We were fools to listen to him in the first place. Fools to try and stop the Emperor murdering 200 of our companions in solitude, Faith snapped, throwing a baleful stare Dedrico's way. Fools for thinking we could make a difference, Sarah murmured, laying a hand on Dedrico's forearm. She always had a calming influence on him. How could we? A handful of sparkers led by a disgraced spice addict and a nobleman. What chance did we stand, really? Faye swallowed her retort and clutched at her crimson robes instead. The others had dumped their clothes that marked them as members of the Order, but Faye kept hers and changed back into them in the safety of the inn's room. They reminded her of who she was, what she represented. Sparkers were meant to inspire people, help them, and to leave a better world than the one they were born into. Ras and Yana said so, and the gift of magic came from them, their gods. So the scripture said. Tears stung her eyes, and she scrubbed them away before they dripped down her cheeks. The world she clung to had died, if it ever existed at all. What will we do then, she asked, turning to the window again, not wanting her companions to see the red rings lining her eyes, the unshed tears shining in them. The shadows had made the streets their domain now, and rain drizzled against the glass, making the people of Temet hurrying away from the deluge appear like formless blobs of ink as she studied them through the window. Dedrico and I are heading to Prosper. We have a boat waiting to take us on to Avastia. We know of the sparkers who fled there. Sarah glanced at her husband. You could come too. To Avastia, Faye barked out a volley of mirthless laughter. I'm sure the elves there love watching sparkers appear on their shores. They know we don't all share the Empire's views on them, Dedrico muttered, though no doubt we will have to prove much to prove once we reach there. Better than here, anyway. Why not Octaria then? Or Velen? Anywhere else? Faye kept asking questions. It stopped her from having to make a decision herself. Her own spies had given her a sliver of information, a chance to strike a blow against the Empire. They claimed to have a source deep inside the Emperor's circle, an influential figure sympathetic to opponents of Houtvelt's war machine. She still wanted to make a difference, even though, deep down, she knew it wiser to flee. Our daughter is there, Sarah smiled. We haven't seen her in so long. She fled years ago after she refused to take a place in the front lines against the elves. Yuan? Faye gasped, shooting forward in her chair. I thought they died. We all have our secrets, Dedrico offered, spreading his hands. So, what are you going to do? Secrets. Well, there's no point in keeping mine. Maybe they can help me. I can't leave. Faye shook her head and filled her lungs. I received a tip. There's a hidden place the Emperor created about a decade ago, not too far outside Springhaven. They call it a school, but it's worse than that. Much worse. Go on, Sarah nodded, glancing at Dedrico. The two shared a link, so no doubt they conversed in private. If one of them spoke, they often did for the other two. Faye suppressed a shiver. I'm told it's a place where they teach these shadow sparkers. If I can do something about it, destroy it somehow, I can delay the Empire's plans. Shadow sparkers. They'd appeared at the order of Sparkers University in the days after the laws of engagement's abolishment, the holy rules dictating how a Sparker should conduct themselves in battle. A mage couldn't use their power to attack unless under threat themselves. So, for years, Locke had put Sparkers in the front lines of battle, where they come under constant attack instead of letting them focus on defense and healing. Some Sparkers chafed against the laws and wanted to see them brought to an end. The Emperor, in his infinite wisdom, obliged. Overnight, the Shadow Sparkers appeared, hooded mages in black, shadows clinging to them, silent, withdrawn, obsidian-eyed. They come from somewhere, Faye whispered when her companions failed to speak. The Emperor didn't just abolish the laws, and these things sprang out of the shadows fully formed. They've planned this for years. And you aim to take them down? Dedrico frowned at her, thick eyebrows pushed together like a stern and hairy caterpillar. Alone? Faye looked through the window. The clouds so dark and thick it appeared as though night had fallen, even though the day had just passed noon. She shivered, pulled her robes closer. They'd have to light a fire. I've done enough running, she replied, giving her friend a tight smile. It's time to fight. It's time to... A sudden swelling of magical energy cut her off. Behind her companions, the door leading to the corridor outside ripped from its hinges and flew across the room, heading straight for her. Faye flung herself from the chair, calling on her spark and drawing on her internal energy to throw a buffer of air at the wood, hurtling towards her and her friends, lifting it over their heads. It crashed into the wall, shattering the glass windows. Wind howled through them, carrying rain with it. Dedrico and Sarah shot to their feet, spinning, summoning their magic. Too late. Two black-robed figures slithered through the doorless portal, jets of black oozing from their raised palms, ebony eyes glittering beneath their heavy hoods. Fear wormed its way into Faye's gut at the sight of the monstrosities, the insults to Ras and Yana, but she shoved it deep down. She didn't have time for fear. Faye summoned her spark, but it refused to respond to her. Instead, she reached the sword at her hip, but her arms remained stuck to her side. She couldn't move, couldn't reach the magic inside her. All she could do was stare as a third black-robed figure entered the room. It shielded her from the spark, restricted her movements too, and forced her down to the ground. Faye screamed as her friends dropped to their knees too, their flesh turning grey, their hair shedding their scalps. The shadow sparkers eviscerated them. A forbidden spell for so long, now thrust into the acceptable conduct of war. It stripped away life essence of a target, turning them into mush. Dedrico and Sarah would never get to prosper, and would never see their daughter again. No one escaped the Empire. No one. Sarah's eyes, filled with abject terror, rolled in Faye's direction, one of them drooping onto her cheek as her skin lost its firmness, as the black tendrils of magic plunged into her and her husband's bodies, devouring them, sucking on their essence. It appeared like a living creature, the black jets of power, plunging into her friends, feasting on their bones, their flesh, their magic. Dedrico and Sarah melted before her eyes, their cries of anguish and despair turning wet as their jaws turned to mush and their organs failed. The shadow sparkers eviscerated them without so much as a word and with stunning speed. Faye whimpered, tears falling now, until nothing remained of her friends except an oozing pile of slime atop some discarded travelling gloves. What are you waiting for? Faye cried at the shadow sparker who shielded her, glaring at the others who'd murdered Dedrico and Sarah. If you're going to do it, do it. The black-robed figures didn't answer. The two who had eviscerated her friends stood in some kind of rapture, eyes closed, licking their lips as though they could taste the death they dealt on their flesh. The other cocked its head as it stared down at Faye, impassive. No doubt you'll get your just desserts soon, A woman in plain clothes entered the room, glancing at the steaming messes on the floor and raising an eyebrow like she'd seen it all before. Perhaps she had. We have questions for you. Faye glared at her. The woman appeared utterly nondescript, unremarkable in every way, average in looks, build, and height, with a plain face beneath mousy brown hair and dull eyes. But Faye knew. The woman possessed a sharp mind, superior fighting skills, and an unshakable faith in Houtveldt. For people like her, the pride she felt in her nation verged on religious frenzy. For members of the Hand, Emperor Locke, first of his name, was a god. I'll never answer you, Faye spat, struggling against her invisible binds in vain, the cords in her neck tight, the muscles in her arms and legs rippling. She grabbed at a spark, begged it to answer her. It lay just beyond her fingertips, so close. You might as well kill me now. The Emperor's hand smiled. Names, Faye de Guerin. Places, rumours and facts. You have all I seek. You'll be coming with us to Springhaven, and you'll tell us what we want to know. And once we're done with you, well, she glanced at the shadow sparkers. Once my friends are done with you. A black bag stuffed over her head stifled Faye's screams as magic lifted her from the ground. No one escaped the Empire. No one. And that is the end of the prologue. I hope you enjoyed it. So I was actually going to tell people a little bit about what Solitude Shadow was, but I just started reading for people that don't know what it is. So the prologue kind of takes place towards the end of the first book with characters that aren't in the first book. But it sets up the story quite well for the second one, and the things that happen in this prologue echoed throughout the book. But basically, and if anyone has any questions or anything, I'll go through the comments in a second, because we have like about 10 minutes left. But basically, in Solitude Shadow and Empire of Ruin, it's an island nation of Houtveldt, which is based on war. And they're in a war to the north and a war to the south. Most of the characters in it are all kind of linked to each other in some kind of way. But at the center of it is this religious order called Sparkers, who are also magical, and they are historically a religious order that are for healing and teaching and all this kind of thing, but they can be a potent weapon. And the Emperor, the current Emperor, has been looking at ways to use them as a weapon for a number of years. And so what he does is he puts them into the front rows of battle where they're in danger, where they can attack or defend themselves in magical ways. And some people are chafing against the laws and the old ways and don't believe in the gods anymore. And there is the Emperor and the Empire kind of designs a rupture in this order, which some people are happy about and some people are not. So in the prologue, obviously we're following some people that are not happy about it, and they're discussing something that happens towards like 3/4 through in Solitude Shadow. But yes, we did those. I think it's not a bad prologue. I know there is a panel coming up in the next few days about prologues and epilogues, if people are fans of them or not. I'd love to know if any of you guys are. I do like them. Maybe not the 4 prologues that are in Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings, but I like one good prologue as long as it, does something for the story. And for this one, some of those characters may well pop up in the rest of Path of War, or I spoke about, but they're not. And what happens and the themes of that prologue are quite prevalent in the rest of the book, but they're not necessarily like the main characters or anything. So I think it does well for a prologue, and I think it's quite okay. Reading it then, I didn't think it was terrible, which I sometimes do think when I read some of my stuff. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to go through the comments now, and then if there's nothing else, we can wrap up. But thank you so much for coming in and listening to me talk about my story. Hi, Rambling David. Yes. Hello, Pam. Rachel, I nearly walked off the cliffs of Moher Island because of the weather. Yes. Well, there is a sign saying don't go too close to the edge, but everyone ignores it. People just stick stickers on it and then take pictures of themselves stood past the sign. If there's something written in Ireland, people will disagree with it. That's how we do it. Please go into narration, Alora says, nature documentaries. No, I will not. Most excellent. Thank you for the comments on my voice. Thank you very much. This is for people that don't know the Indie Fantasy Addicts group, or IFA. Please go and search for it. Indie Fantasy Addicts on Facebook. It's a fantastic group, full of great authors and great readers and great competitions and all sorts of stuff. And the people that run it, who some of who are here tonight, thank you, are all brilliant people. But there is, I posted a video on there recently with my voice, and people had opinions about my accent, and they still do, which is wonderful. Love the caterpillar imagery. Thank you. So the Shadow Sparkers seem to have gone down quite well. Yeah, the Shadow Sparkers are Shadow Sparkers rung in Solitude Shadow for a chapter, I guess. Really, they come in with a bit of a bang and they leave quickly. But they're in Path of War quite a lot, and we delve into the creation of the Shadow Sparkers and the ties the creation of the Shadow Sparkers has to our main characters, and other things as well. So if you like to hear about those and what they can do, then there's going to be a lot more of them. Thanks, Nikki. Poor Faye. Yeah, poor Faye. She's yeah, I liked her actually. I might actually write a spin-off about her because from before this, so she can have not such a terrible time. Prologue, Rachel is a prologue camp. Sometimes you need them, different time period, different voice, whatever. Yes, that's exactly what I think as well. Thanks very much. Kit Varia, I'm happy with a good prologue and with none. I don't just like it. Yeah. I don't just like a prologue that is a badly disguised info dump. Yeah, I'm the same. It has to say something in some kind of way. And Nikki says they can set a tone for the book. And she thinks it was well done. Thank you, Callum, as well, and Constance. Rachel, on a scale of 1 to 10, how dark will Path of War be compared to In Solitude Shadow? It's a fair bit darker than In Solitude Shadow, but it still tries. One of the very early reviews of In Solitude Shadow was from A.M. Justice, who is on panels with QuaranCon and amongst other things here, and she provided the little blurb for the front cover as well from a review, and she referred to it as grim dark with hope, which is still, the second one still retains that. I do like grim dark. I think Java Crombie is one of my favorite authors in general, and Anna Smith Spark as well, who is on some panels soon, and Mark Lawrence and everyone like that. But I do, at heart, I love epic fantasy, and I like classic epic fantasy as well, where there is that glimmer of hope. So I do try and keep that in there, but it is quite a bit darker than In Solitude Shadow, because for people that have read it and know where it ends, it doesn't end in a great place. It is dark fantasy, and we pick up with some of the characters that survive the first book in very challenging places, and that has to kind of continue, and it's very character driven. Solitude Shadow is, and so is Path of War. There is big, epic, wide ranging things that are going on, but it is very character driven, which was important to me to kind of retain the second one. But you have to test them and challenge them. So yeah, it's a bit darker. So if we said that, Solitude Shadow is like a 6, maybe a 7 in darkness, this would be an 8 or a 9. Yeah. right? But it isn't gratuitous. Like everything happens for a reason. I hope, and I hope readers find that as well, because I don't really like gratuitous, like dark for the sake of just dark. It needs to have a purpose. But yeah, that is that. So thank you. I have a message saying that we had the time warning is coming up. So this has gone really, really quickly. So thank you everyone for coming on. And thanks to your dad gamer. I have a wonderful voice 2.0. Grimmed out with hope, no dark is great. Yeah, thank you. Thread of hope is important. Way to build the shadow sparkers thread. Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to do that. Yeah, 8 or 9. I don't know. You'll have to tell me when you read it how you think of how much darker you think it is. I don't know. I just wrote it as what I thought it would make the most sense. But there's still fun in it. But just before I finish, because I have a couple of minutes there is I was a little bit worried about how dark it was going at some point. So on my outline, I had a little line that says Colleen goes on an adventure. And it was meant to be like a chapter or something like that, where she just goes off and does her own thing. But it ended up being like a 20,000 chunk of this story, which is like a sword and sorcery adventure story, where it's like, big adventures, capers, bit of fun. I had so much fun writing it. Actually, it was, and that is hopefully going to still be in the book once it comes out. So there is, there is lightness in it as well. There's humor and everything else. So thank you anyway for all coming on. Please stick around and watch more from QuaranCon if you will. Check out the store on the website as well. If you search QuaranCon2022.com or Google QuaranCon2022, you'll find it. And thanks so much for coming in and for your kind comments and for all your questions, and it's just showing an interest. And have a great time at the rest of the con. And thank you very much. I'll see you soon. Maybe I'm still here.